Thanks for tuning in to the HR Uprising podcast. I'm your host, Lucinda. The HR Uprising is focused on helping forward-thinking people professionals deliver real lasting value in their organisations. I'm a chartered psychologist, speaker and trainer, and recently authored the best-selling business book, How to Be a Change Superhero. My day job is founder and CEO of software and training business Actus. This gives me the opportunity to work with other businesses like yours. We are focused on building a better workplace for people wherever they are located, with the help of our performance, learning and talent management software and our training and consultancy services. Every week on the podcast, I will be covering different topics and challenges, joined by relevant experts and real-life people professionals. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoy and get value from this week's episode. This week's episode is a little practical episode, a solo one, and I just wanted to introduce it and give you a heads up that next week, just as we hit the summer holidays, and I know that some of you are on holidays already, we've got a great episode for you. Actually, I'm talking to Leslie Salem from Over the Bloody Moon, so it's a topic all about the menopause revolution, which I haven't covered yet, so do tune into next week's. But giving you the heads up that I'll then be taking a break for the summer holidays. We will be back with the HR Uprising episode number 170 in the autumn, but I'll be posting out on our LinkedIn group, sort of getting ideas for what you'd like to see, because we've covered so many topics now. One thing that's coming through is organisational development. Seems like a topic that lots of people are interested in, but let me know what you would like to hear on the HR Uprising podcast. I only want to carry on doing the podcast if it's something that people find useful. And if we've covered all the topics that you need, then you've got the back catalogue. But I am intending to carry on in the autumn. Certainly I intend to make it to 200 not out, and we'll see where we go from there. So if you are enjoying the HR Uprising podcast, do message me. Please tell people, please leave us a rating or a review. If you've never considered doing that, that would be great. It does help people to find us. If you want to message me, contact me through LinkedIn, join our LinkedIn group and tell us more about what topics you want us to cover, because this is the point of this podcast is to make it useful for others. So hope to hear from you, and just wanted to let you have that heads up that this is the penultimate episode before the summer break, and we'll be back in the autumn. Thanks for tuning in. Hello and welcome to this week's HR Uprising podcast. And this week I thought it was time for a solo episode. As we run into summer, there were a few topics that I thought that could be useful topics for you to perhaps reference back to. And this week I thought I'd focus in on creative problem solving, which is something I've trained people in doing, but actually relatively recently I was working with my team and we were thinking, let's try some different models when we were thinking of getting fresh ideas. And, when you've got different challenges that are facing you, thinking of different ways of doing them. So I've got two activities here that if you were running a session with a team that you might want to have something different that you could use with them. Now, the first one is one that I'm sure you've all heard of, which I had heard of, but I hadn't actually used myself for ages, for donkey's years. And that's Edward de Bono's thinking hats. So I thought what I'd do is I'd run through the thinking hats with you and just see whether it's something you've thought about doing and perhaps some examples in which you could use it yourself. And the second one is a bit of a love it or hate it one. It reminds me a bit of games that I've played, back at college in terms of word association, if any of you have ever played that. And it's called random stimulation. So the purpose of this session really is just to share a couple of examples of tools that you could use with your own team, or if you were facilitating something with your senior leaders where you wanted to get them to unblock, to think differently. Or perhaps, particularly in the case of the thinking hats, let's say sometimes they're a little bit, maybe the meetings are getting a bit unstructured. There's lots and lots of differing opinions. People are not listening to each other. Maybe people aren't actually speaking up. So it can be a really good way to get people thinking along the same lines, in parallel, if you like, rather than in opposition. I'm assuming many of you have heard of de Bono's thinking hats, but maybe you haven't. But just to let you know, so Dr. Edward de Bono, he was born on the 19th of May, 1933. He was a Maltese physician and the inventor of lateral thinking. So I didn't know that until I looked into this. And he wrote this book, The Six Thinking Hats, in 1986. And his belief was that the main difficulty of thinking is confusion, where we're all doing too much at once. And what we're saying that effectively it means that we let our emotions, logic, hope, creativity, pessimism, all of these things crowd in on us, and it's like juggling too many balls at once. So to alleviate this confusion, he came up with these 6 different types of thinking, associating them with a different colour hat. And, depending on your style of operation, you could even have different coloured hats that you could put on while you were thinking in these different ways. Essentially, it's a technique that helps people look at problems from a variety of perspectives, and it directs you how to think rather than what to think. So it's a style of thinking. It's not necessarily giving you the solutions, it's just helping you to think in a certain way. And the benefit of that, of course, is if we're all as a group thinking in this similar way, then it can help us to overcome conflict. Because you think of those meetings where you've been and someone goes, oh, well, I'll play devil's advocate. The way this works is that you all play devil's advocate together, and then you might wear a different hat where you all think about what the possibilities are together. So it makes people collaborate rather than oppose each other. And that can be useful with different personalities and things as well. So benefits there, we're going to get better team working, etc. And hopefully it's going to make people feel more productive, encourage some innovation, and at the very least it's a nice structured way of thinking. It'll brighten up a meeting and you may get some fresh ideas or some increased clarity. So what are these different hats? Well, the first one is the blue hat, and that's actually almost the chairperson's hat. It's where you might be managing the meeting management hat, basically. So that one's really about setting up the conversation in the meeting. So where you might agree how long you're going to do the activity for, what the ground rules are, what the problem is, the agenda, the goals and scope. So if you were a project manager or leading this, you might say, so what's the problem that we're dealing with today? So we might have, let's say that we've not got enough leads coming into our business at the moment. We're too few leads or something like that. And you're trying to understand why we're going to work on that particular problem. You've then got your white hat, and the white hat is used at the start and the finish of the session. It's all about the facts and data. So you start off understanding the problem clearly in terms of determining the facts and data. So let's take the example that I've just used. All right, we've not got enough leads coming into our business. What we might say is, okay, what exactly leads do we have? So how many leads are we getting in a month or a week? What sources are they coming from? All of the facts that you can get. And are they referral? Are they pay-per-click? Are they customers walking into a shop? What are the different leads that are coming through, and just getting the facts and figures. And also, if we're saying less, then maybe you might want some data about how they compare with this time last year, so you know the context. So the white hat is gathering all the facts and figures. You need that at the start because you're dealing with facts, and also it's useful to put that hat on again at the end to revisit any ideas that you came from the other hats. So then we start going into what I say the more creative ones, because I'd say the blue and the white, that's quite normal meeting stuff, right? So let's think then about the different ones. So the green hat is like the shoots of green coming through. It's about new and innovative ideas, using that old cliche, think outside the box. So we might think really wacky ideas of how could we do something in terms of our lead generation. So we might do a webinar, or we might go and run around the street saying, please, knock on doors. I don't know. I'm being silly because it depends on what the product is you're talking about. But we might just say, what could we do? No wrong idea. It's one of those, it's like brainstorming, basically, where there's no incorrect idea. The key with this is that there's no negative thinking or comments allowed at this stage in the process. So I would say it is quite like the rules of brainstorming, where you go, there's no wrong ideas, just get everything out there. And the green hat would be similar when I talk about the other tool you can use, the random stimulation. That's a similar type. If you're a very free thinking person, if you've ever heard of left and right brains, it's very right brains, very creative, making abstract connections with things. But the key is there's no devil's advocate at that stage. Then you've got that creativity. You then got the optimistic hat, where you're going, okay, if the best could happen of all those ideas, what are the possible merits of those? How good could it be? How amazing? What are the potential benefits if it went really, really well with these ideas that we've brainstormed? You then move on to, so we've got the positives there, a nice sunny yellow hat. The red hat is where we might talk about more feelings and emotions. And so it could be, I'm really fearful that about the consequences of having too few leads, or it might be, I just don't really like that idea. I'd hate to knock on doors, or I'm quite uncomfortable with that particular idea. That doesn't sit well with me, stealing leads from competitors, whatever it might be. So that's where people are just open and honest, but they're speaking from the gut there. So you don't have to justify them. They're just speaking gut feelings. And again, no shouting them down, no shame, no wrong idea. It's all just being open and honest and what the concerns might be. And then those people who are the pessimists, they get to wear the black hat. We go, okay, these are the negative but the logical issues. So where we've got possible solutions that are coming to the fore, perhaps some have already been cast aside by the process already, it's then about saying, what are the risks? If we were to go with that, what could go wrong? Why might that not be a good idea? And you can use that to start knocking things out. So this is where you're using sort of critical thinking just to see whether or not these ideas are robust enough, if they stand up to scrutiny. It's not about knocking them down for the sake of it. It's about just challenging them so that if you do pull some ideas that come through, they've been well challenged, well thought through. You've looked at the upside and they've seemed like they're going to have a good possibility. So you've got to go in that order where you go blue, white, green, yellow, red, black. But if at any point the facilitator who's got their blue hat on, and incidentally, remember, you're all kind of wearing the same hats at the same time, but there'll still be this overall chair, or it could be you might be the chair. If you think, oh, hang on, we've gone too much down a rabbit hole, it's gone too dark, you might say, hold on a minute, let's go back and put our yellow, sunny optimism hat on and go, okay, what else do we think here? Or you might go, could we have some fresh ideas? It sounds like we've got some extra ideas coming out, people, some more creativity. Let's go back to the brainstorming. So you can bring other ideas at other times. So it's just a nice, a different thing to do. I think you probably would need to allow at least an hour to do it. You probably only need things like flip charts, but I suppose you could do it. You could absolutely do it virtually. So you could use a collaborative whiteboard with people, and it is something that you could do with a hybrid team, as long as you make sure that everybody has their opportunity to speak and be heard, or potentially use the chat and use the same rules. So it is something I think you could use. Usually, traditionally, it would be sitting around a table, but I think it could be done remotely as well. So try that, have a think about that. That might be something that you consider to be useful, could be something which is a bit of fun. And then, as promised, I said I'd mention this other one. Now, I have done this exercise a few times. I think it's quite fun, but I think it appeals to my personality, and some people don't get it at all. So it's called random stimulation, and this is a good way of coming up with just a completely different idea. So let's say, for example, you want to come up with an idea for your next team event. So you're not quite sure, you've done loads of different things, you want to try something different. So it's a 5-step process, and I'll just run through the 5 steps first, then I'll give you an example of how you could do it. So you need to make sure that everyone who's involved in the activity understand what the 5 steps are. And the first step is everyone needs to understand what the problem is, the clear subject or purpose of it. And we've just said that one. So the one we're saying here is to have a new idea for our next team event. The second one is disconnecting from that problem. It's selecting a random stimulation. And I'll explain what that is in a moment. You then have to associate with the word, whichever the random stimulation is, which is point number 3. Point number 4 is make a link between the association and the point of interest. And that might be a bit confusing, but basically it's making a connection between point 3 and the first subject. And then it's capturing your ideas. All right. So establishing a subject, choose a random stimulation, associate with the word, make a link between the associations, and note the ideas. So our first one is clear subject. So then we need to choose a random stimulation. It's a strange term. And actually, I'm thinking about this now. It was when I worked, the company I used to work for, Siemens. And I wonder if it's a German translation. But it's basically choose something random, a random object that you're going to use to stimulate creative thinking. That's why they've called it random stimulation. So I could say random stimulation is tree. I'm just looking out my window, I can see there's a tree. Now, the key here is don't automatically start going, oh, okay, I'm going to go tree climbing. So my brain's gone to, let's go and do the climbing thing that you do, high ropes or something like that. That's a bit obvious, although I suppose that could be a tree. I'm already making my creative ideas. I know there's quite a few members of my team would hate that, in fairness, high ropes. So the idea is you choose the tree. We ignore the first thing, and the point you've got to then do is, as a team, make all the associations that you can come up with the word tree. We're forgetting about the overall problem. So you might go tree, squirrel, leaves, wood, water, large. You just brain dump all the things that you can come up with, and then you've got these things that are just sort of one step. What you're doing is you're one step away from the problem. So then we've got all of those lists of things that are on your blank paper or whatever it might be. And what you then do is you look at those. So you've got your leaves, plank, etc. And we're going to make an association between that and our team away day. And I'll take one now. So I've thought, okay, let's say it's leaves, foliage. Maybe it's coming up to Christmas. Let's go and do a wreath making workshop. Or let's go and do something where you paint leaves with gold paint and do something decorative as a team. That could be an amazing idea. That's not the worst idea I've ever had. Or you might go wood. Let's go down and chopping wood, or wood carving, or blowing through planks of wood. You name it. You can come up with these ideas. But what you're doing is, because you're not just focusing in on the traditional, we're not going, okay, let's go and do laser quest or escape rooms, or doing normal things that are out there. You're actually coming up with things which are a little bit more random, a little bit more creative, and it's a bit different. So you might come up with a whole list of different ideas. So I'm interested. Do let me know if any of you like the random stimulation or think I'm gone completely bonkers. It is nearly summer holiday. We'll be stopping the HR Uprising for a break over summer for you to get over my slightly crackers problem solving ideas there. But I thought it might be a little bit of fun just to share those two activities with you, because maybe you are thinking about a summer team event. Maybe you want to get doing something creative. You're working in a hybrid environment now. How do we still get those sense of collaboration? And both of those activities could be done if you needed to do them digitally. So just a short HR Uprising this week, but hopefully a practical one. I'll put some links in the show notes where you can go read more about this on the 6 thinking hats. I'm not sure about the random stimulation. I think you might have to, I'll put the bullets for the processes in the show notes for this one, so that you've got them there if you want to refer back to it. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for tuning in as ever, and see you next week. I really hope you found this week's episode useful and enjoyable. If you did, perhaps you could recommend us to a friend or colleague, or give us a review on your platform of choice. It really helps new listeners to find us. Now, you can access links to any of the information mentioned in this show via the website www.hruprising.com. Further free resources are also available at www.actus.co.uk. There you can also find out more about our software and training solutions. Finally, why not join our LinkedIn group, the HR Uprising, to share ideas and collaborate with other like-minded people professionals. Thank you for listening to the HR Uprising podcast.